Good morning, everybody. Friday, the 30th of May, last trading day of the week. And it's been a bit of a slow week. I think I've only actually traded once this week, which I think was yesterday. And we'll see if we get anything today, but I think it's just once or twice this week. I'm just going to take a look at my trade screenshots. Yeah, pretty much once this week, which was yesterday, which was $1,500. Monday we were off, Tuesday, Wednesday, no trade days, and then Thursday, which was yesterday, my only trade. Yeah, my only trade. So we'll see if we get anything today. All I'm really looking for today is just the setups that I have. I have an appointment that I need to go to in the next hour. So I'm going to do the breakdown now on YouTube, and then we'll switch over to Zoom once this finishes. And when I get back, obviously, if any of these levels form, then I'll be able to obviously take a trade. But I'm going to keep it quite simple. One thing I will say, there's 2 days left on the 50% offer on the lifetime, yearly, and the masterclass with code 2025. So please make sure to use that, because that will be expiring automatically on the 2nd of May, I think. Sorry, 2nd of June, in 2 days' time. But without further ado, we'll just look at the daily, just to go from where we've come from. And the reason I've not really been doing too much this week is because my weekly, I mentioned this yesterday, but my weekly target was met on the overnight session of Tuesday or Wednesday. So I was expecting these highs to get taken out. And they traded those on Wednesday on pretty much mostly on the overnight. We came up to those levels and I didn't really have an entry. So there wasn't really much for me to do. So as I said yesterday and also Wednesday, when your weekly magnitude or target has been taken, it makes the rest of the week very difficult, because that was the level that I was wanting price to gravitate towards. And now we've taken that out, which you can see here. Now we've come above those highs. Now it's just like we're basically in no man's land. So I've got two draws that I'm paying attention to, and if we zoom out again, the high to high, I've changed the anchor because we haven't yet completed, but that anchor is still in play from the low of last Friday on the overnight session. Remember, we haven't yet traded it on the RTH. We have on the ES, on the SPY, on the RTH, but we haven't on the NQ. So that high to high would be at 501s. Draw to the new high now, it would take out the low of last Friday, and we would come down to 504s before coming back up into 540s. So if that is going to trade, that's exactly what that setup would look like. But the only levels I'm going to pay attention to would be that same anchor new high on the high to high, and that support is going to line up with two levels. It's going to line up with basically the 38% of that draw, which is also going to be 79% to 88% of that kind of zone of the current extension. The reason that's important is because if we draw this back to where we rallied from, which is these highs here, this was the 38% retracement where we came out of. And a draw from that low to high, we've traded the halfway back once, twice, and this is still a zone to pay attention to, and that's why I have two levels, right? So I have two levels to go long from, and those are, I mean, there's nothing saying, I'm just going to go to half an hour because it's a bit harder to see. There's nothing, I did initially this morning have another long setup at this 50. I just didn't want to confuse new members. Let's go back. I just didn't want to confuse new members with too many scenarios. But this is also a situation, right? But if you want to be more conservative and wait, as I've been saying this whole week, wait for market to show its hands, then it's going to be much easier. And this has kept you out of trouble all day yesterday and all day Wednesday by just waiting for price to get above a key level. And that key level for me is where we've had all of this resistance, okay, at pretty much 420s, 425s. But this isn't going to be out of the woods. I would still want to see this actually break above highs, and then you buy the retracement long, which is going to roughly line up with about 520s to 540s. An ATR stop, whatever the ATR is at that point. And I would be targeting at least yesterday's open price, if not equal highs. That would be one scenario that I'm going to be looking at if we get above 420s, and ideally hold above 525s, 540s. Again, there's nothing to do if you aren't trading those levels, right? We don't short bullish trends. It's much easier to be a buyer on pullbacks when you're in bullish structure, i.e., you know, look at the daily, look at the weekly, right? The only other situation I have is if we come down into deep discount, which would pretty much just be a cheap long, which are my less favorable trades. I prefer taking trades above the 50 because technically speaking, when you break a 62 of a draw that is bullish, it's technically breaking a long and setting up a short, meaning short retracements would be valid. But coming all the way down to a 79% fade long inside that high to high 38% retracement would be bullish. And I would like to see a move up, the market showing its hands, and then a retracement on a high to high or a traditional would be acceptable for a pullback. And as I've just drew this, it would be 21,020, right? It doesn't have to be that exact level, but that's roughly what it would look like if you were going to trade a traditional from here. Obviously, you can map that where that's going to put you. And it's always most of the time going to line up with a previous resistance, right? So guys who've been in the room or girls who've been in the room for a while, you know exactly what you're looking for. But they're the only two levels I would look for. Now, this here, where we are, again, this is where market needs to show its hand in terms of the deciding factor. This is the halfway back. You've tested it once, you've tested it twice. If you open above this level on the open and you rally out of this level, brilliant. Yes, we may have missed a small portion of the move, but trading out of here into this is going to be much harder than trying to trade this into this, in my opinion. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. I'm kind of glad that I've got a 1 hour appointment from 3 till 4 because it will give time for the market to digest at least for a good hour and a half into the euro close, and then potentially I get some sort of lunch setup or PM setup. So that's all I really have today. Again, no shorts on the table. I do not short or do not really recommend shorting when we're in bullish structure, and it's always beneficial, in my opinion, to wait for the pullbacks, and the pullbacks are always much easier to get involved in. They just don't look like it at the time because you're having to wait for price to consolidate and digest and come down. Again, weekly magnitude has already been hit. Okay, this is when I say magnitude, I just mean this is where we were expecting price to get into, and it's already come up into that level. So this was the low from last Friday, and we came all the way up to those highs, 800 points. Okay, that's enough weekly magnitude or weekly room to be able to make money on. And the fact we'd already done that by pretty much like the day after the holidays, it was just very tricky to be able to actually get anything worthwhile apart from yesterday where we did have a nice trade from those longs at their lows. But that's all I really have, so I'm going to keep this one fairly short. I will get Zoom loaded and we will move over from YouTube to Zoom. If there's any questions, please let me know in the Discord. Other than that, guys, happy Friday, capital preservation, and make sure to go into the weekend with a good mindset, ready for Monday. Don't do anything stupid. If the trades aren't setting up, you don't need to take them. So if they aren't A+, wait for a better setup. And if nothing trades, just come back Monday. So that's all I've got this morning. And yeah, I will check you all on Monday.